And could we all stand for a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we have roll call, please?
Mr. Baker.
Here.
Mrs. Bream.
Here.
Mr. Francis.
Here.
Mr. Hawk.
Here.
Mr. Hoover.
Here.
Mrs. Irwin Adams.
She's absent.
Mr. Johnston.
Here.
Mr. Cruz.
Here.
Dr. Malloy.
Here.
Thank you. We did have an executive session this evening at 6 p.m. for personnel issues. And moving along, I believe we have hearing from citizens this evening. We have Crystal Oaks, who will be on the line here shortly.
How do I make this work, somebody?
Uh-oh.
It's like dead. What am I missing, Paula? Or Nick? Or Mike? Oh, that'll slow it down. All right.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. 71741989118 is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
I called the number. The only other number I have is yours.
That's the number she gave us.
To transfer, press 1. To send,
How do I hang this thing up?
to transfer.
I don't want to transfer. Ready?
What's the number again?
To transfer, press
717 419-8918.
Call the streamer so they can call.
Why am I not doing what I need to do?
The average social security number.
to transfer.
Here's your social security number right here.
8675.
I'm not getting a dial tone. How do you hang it up? There we go. Okay, I'm going to dial one more time.
I
See?
tried it on my phone. I got the same thing.
Usually if it goes right to voicemail, shut up. Or they call me at the exact same time.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Okay,
Okay, sorry, we were not able to
go ahead.
reach our person that wanted to speak tonight. We're going to move on. Change orders. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Okay. Any questions, discussion?
We need to talk about what everybody wants to do with 14th Street. This is 502. 502 has two options. One is we want to remove the islands to open the street up, and because if not, we're going to have to repair the islands, and it'll probably cost more money to repair than it will cost to remove. If we remove the islands and we patch the street, it's $33,977. If we remove the islands and repave that section from 5th Avenue to 6th Avenue, it is $68,527. We do have the money in the change orders. We can afford it. The question is, how does the board want to proceed with this? In facilities, we showed you the hodgepodge of patches that will be this section of 14th Street if we don't repave it. The city has said that they will not they will not put any money towards the repaving. Am I correct, Doug?
Even though it is a city street.
Yes.
What's their
Dr.
reasoning
P.
for that?
What
Dr.
is their
P.
reasoning?
Did we put that island in there, or was that something the city did many, many moons ago?
I'm not sure who put the island in. I'm assuming that it was probably put in 77 or 74 when the A building was built.
Dr. P,
Yes.
this is Gary. That price should drop just slightly. They had an incorrect markup on it for overhead and profit. So we're getting that revised, so it should drop slightly. And there may
Okay, so-
be a possible credit floating around out there that's not applied, but it would be minimal.
Okay.
So is that on 1 or 2? It's going to drop.
I'm thinking it's a 5% discount that there are 5% profit charge that would be removed. So you figure probably drop 2,000-3,000 tops.
You're talking off of option 2.
Off of
Repay.
option 2.
Since this is
So
a,
is,
since this is a city street, who will maintain it ongoing? I mean, it's sort of unusual for the city to ask private entities to do this kind of thing, but once it's done, who's going to plow the street? Who's going to fill the potholes? Who's going to maintain it after this?
It'd be the city, correct, Doug?
but my question would be to follow up on that. Would we incur any kind of liability having paved this? Like, so let's say that the district foots the bill, paves the street, and something happens and somebody comes back and the city says, well, the district didn't pave the street to the specs that we would use.
Right,
And
like
that's
water
why an
running
accident.
off or-
I mean, Carl could they come back on us even though that's a public street if we did the improvements?
Sure, the big issue is, are they going to accept it? That would be the question.
At this point, when we checked with the city, their requirements were that we patch it back with the same depth of material that was existing. So that's what we did, that we followed our specifications and just matched their thickness of paving and sub base.
So we've matched their specs with the patches.
Yes, sir.
Gary,
Yes, sir.
could we get that in writing, please,
Yeah, I guess,
from the city? Because they might come back and say, we never had that conversation. Could we get that in writing so we're covered on that?
yeah, I'll have to get that from Eads. Eads is the one that followed up with the city on that.
Yeah, I've seen how this works before when the city says something's okay or whatever, and then we later find out they say they never had that discussion.
Okay,
So could we please get that in writing?
yeah, a simple email from Eads stating that, is that sufficient?
Carl, is that sufficient?
As long as you get a response to it. I
Well,
don't want
that's-
like an email that just goes out and they never respond. Just say, we're doing X. Is this acceptable? And I assume they're going to assume responsibility for that portion of the street moving forward. Is that
Could
correct?
we add in something like per our discussion?
Yeah, as long as you have date and time and who you spoke to. Sure.
Okay, I will.
Let's get on that.
I
So
will
should-
follow up with Eads on that and get something from them. One thing to keep in mind, if you went with option 1, that's going to be a maintenance nightmare. There are 4 crossings that have to happen there, plus what we already have torn up under contract. And so if those are passed back as the district's plowing that area, whoever's plowing that area, you're going to have some rough edges that are going to chip. You're going to get some water down in there that's going to freeze, cause more potholes, and it's going to look like a patch job. Just keep that in mind. It's going to be ugly with all the work that needs to go on.
Suggesting option 2.
I'm sorry.
Are you suggesting option 2?
I'm just making you aware what option 1 is if you go that route.
Has the city engineer been in to check the road?
I do not know. My information and authorization to put this RFP together came from Eads.
Well, if the city engineer comes in and checks the road, then we shouldn't have any liability anywhere.
Correct.
Who's the engineer on this job?
The engineer from the city?
No, it's designing the road.
Eads,
Or-
right?
Eads is doing it to the city spec.
Right. So I think everybody here would like to see the city involved in it, you know, give the okay.
Yeah, I
The
think
city wouldn't let us close that street. When you petitioned to close that street, they wouldn't allow that.
It
Correct?
never went to petition to close.
They never went that far?
It never went that far.
They told you they wouldn't do it? Or how did it happen that we didn't try to close it?
Kind of had an incursion of the Catholic Church.
Oh, okay. So it had nothing to do with the city.
Right.
So the paving is going to just be the area where that island is.
The patching would be that if we repave the street, it's basically going to run from Fifth Avenue to Sixth Avenue.
The whole street,
It'll be a block, right?
curb to curb.
Two lanes.
how quickly, I mean, it sounds like a lot of us would like to get some assurances that this would be done the right way and there wouldn't be any liability. Are we able to table 502, like we meet again in 2 weeks till we get that? Or is that going to jeopardize a timeline? I mean,
Gary?
I'd feel better if I saw something in writing that, and, you know, Carl could look at it so we know we're good, you know, liability wise.
Gary?
Yeah, this would need to happen in, well, as far as within the next 2 weeks is fine. It's not super critical at this point, just as long as we get our crossings done and get the work done before the asphalt plant's shut down, which is typically close to Thanksgiving.
So are you making a request to table 502 pending more information from the city?
Yes. That would be
I'd feel
great.
more comfortable that way.
I
Just to
do
get
too.
more
I want the
information.
city involved with it.
There's
who's,
another factor too. It's 764 is a state road. So I would think the state would have to be involved somewhere in giving approval because we're intersecting their road.
Could be.
We are coming up to and attaching to their
Yeah.
road, but we're not actually crossing it.
No, but
No,
if you
they have
share
some
water
say
to run onto
in
their
who
road.
intersects it, and yeah, I think they're going to have to sign off on it too, I would think.
That should be included in our highway occupancy permit because it was always contractually wise. We always had these road crossings there. So that should be part of our HOP.
So I guess we're basically
It's already been
saying,
done.
let's table this.
I just want to
get
know
something
who's
in
going to
writing
take
and
the
come
lead.
back.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
No. Actually, I should have withdrawn my second for that. Rick can make a motion.
Can I add, Carl, can you ask your question really quick?
I just want to find out like who's taking the lead to communicate, and ensure that it's all going to be according to Hoyle, and they're going to accept it. Who's the one that's making all those written communications with the city?
I thought Gary was gonna do it and then you were gonna look it over. Or should we have you do the lead on this one?
No, I'm not the, you know, I'm not the lead on this. I just want to know
Step
who's
back
going
on
to
that
write it
for a
up.
I
All
have
right, so we have Gary write something up, then you take a peek at it and tell if it's kosher, and we go from there.
I will follow up with Eads and have Eads provide us the information. They are the civil engineer of record on this project. So it all needs to come through them. So I will follow up with Eads, have them get us whatever we can get from the city. And I'll turn it over to Dr. P and you can forward it on to whomever.
I'm just going to throw my township hat on here that I had on there for many years. We would have passed some kind of resolution on this, approving the school district's improvements for our street. And I really think city council is who you need to get to sign off on it.
Yeah, I can't believe the city isn't involved in this. It's their road.
Has anyone talked to any of our council people?
Not officially, but I can do it real quick.
Isn't there a city manager in Elton?
Yes.
Yes,
I guess he'd be the guy to go to, correct?
I would think.
Okay,
Either that or it would be, who's the fella? Nathan? Who's the fella down there? Nate Kissel. Because that's strictly his bailiwick. Every time we deal with anything in the city, it comes through Nate.
I think unless we have something formally in writing, some kind of a formal document approved by the city, we're asking for problems.
Agreed.
Thank you. Let's table it.
Okay, so we have a motion to table and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, do we have to go back and do a motion excluding that item? Carl,
No.
we can go forward with that motion?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns?
503 was the change orders for the cover plates for the
Yes,
in the maroon and the beige ceilings.
yes.
So that's what it looked like in the beige. I think that looks fine, right? Similar to that. I mean, that's, or is that white?
That's a white cover on white. I mean, it's going to be a white, it's going to be basically what we consider a snow white cover.
Yeah.
Making it, having it match the maroon and having it match the beige is going to make it blend in better.
I have a question. Change order 277, additional asbestos removal. Where is that asbestos?
CHP, the central heating plant, they found pipes that were wrapped with, they were wrapped on the outside with fiberglass, and underneath the fiberglass wrapping was another layer of asbestos wrapping that had to be removed by RL abatement.
And they just found that when they were tearing it down?
They found it when they were tearing it down.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
Gary, how about that change order PC 50? Did you talk to the contractor about that or the engineer about that?
Yes, we are kicking that back to between the HVAC contractor and the plumbing. That's in progress right now. So at this point, that's been pulled off of the agenda until we get it resolved.
Okay, so they didn't accept to do that work at no charge yet.
No, they have not, but our worst case scenario would be to do a deduct from HVAC contractor and add to the plumbing contractor if we can't resolve it. But
So
that's in process right now.
Okay.
they didn't accept to do that, or they did?
They haven't
They're
yet.
working on it.
They requested the basis of design specifications so that they could justify that they felt they met what the basis of design was. So again, there's correspondence going back and forth, and we're still working our way through that.
So Eric asked at the last meeting that if they change the equipment, then they're responsible for anything to make that equipment work, right?
That appears to be the way the specification reads.
Okay,
This-
so
this
if that's
was
the case, the units, and I'm going off of memory here, the units that they put on top of the A building was incorrect, and they had to build new boxes or something to set those
Additional
units. Am I
steel, and
right?
we're investigating those too.
Okay.
We've gone through, we went through all the steel and all the other requests, which we thought may have been driven by changes in the units.
Okay, because
And-
that's
and
what they
he's
did there.
investigating all of those.
All right.
Okay, any more conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Can I get a motion and a second for the minutes of the meeting on 7/13 and 7/16, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, finance. List of payments. AMPS. Arts Altoona lease agreement. Contracted services, ESS, LPNs, and RNs. And that is it for finance. Can we have a motion
So
and a
moved.
second? Second?
Second.
Okay, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to education. Research. Mount Aloysius College Cooperative Agreement. Volunteers. Kimmel Program Reconfiguration. AAHS and AAJHS ATSI Plan. Secondary Fine Arts Boosters of the Altoona Area School District bylaws. And that is it. Can we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Questions?
Just a point of clarification, we need a board approval to reconfigure and move Kimmel so that we can finish that off with the state and make that happen.
I have a question on 902, and I actually have questions and comments on 905 as well.
Okay.
902 is the agreement with Mount Aloysius.
Yeah, that's so we can do our cyber security program with them.
The only thing there, and I just know this from having worked at the high school for 20 years, is that under the additional expectations from the high school, item number 3, display Mount Aloysius college materials, posters, and brochures in the classrooms where the Mount Aloysius course provided. Been a long-standing rule about having college recruiters in and posting any of that kind of material outside of the Career Center. So that may be a policy change. The other things there, I spoke with Drew Yingling. They've already done the other things, but item 3 is something that in the past, the high school has never participated in that kind of thing. I would say that could set a precedent where other partners that may want to work with us or have asked in the past would say, why couldn't we hang our pennants and put our brochures in your classes?
I think what we're going to do is we're going to strike number 3 and we'll just use it. We'll do it and we will inform them of that and hopefully they will agree. I don't think there'll be an issue if we, because they're going to have to sign up for the kids are going to have to sign up for the classes and they're going to have to go through the counseling office. And
correct. Drew said they do all the other stuff anyway, but the literature in the rooms has always been a no-no.
Okay, we'll strike that.
Steers people.
Right.
Strike number 3.
And I can hold
Camilla, can you write that?
If anybody else has anything before I go to 905, I don't want to monopolize time.
Go for it, bud.
Okay, so these are the additional
These are the
targeted school improvement plans.
right.
So just a couple of comments. This is actually something I do in my regular job. I help schools write these. And one of the things that kind of caused some concern for me was if we look at the economically disadvantaged groups and minority groups, there are a lot of interventions listed that are purely academic, that are based on curriculum programs like textbook series and things like that. There's no mention anywhere in either of those documents of things like social emotional learning, restorative practices. Both groups are targeted because of attendance. I saw one of the engagement strategies was listed as Google Drive. Now that could very well mean that people are going to put engaging activities into Google Drive. But I'm concerned that there's a lot of mention of doing things, through health-based services that are in the schools already, which are great. The problem is those only reach the kids that are going to reach out for that. Months ago, when we talked about bullying and other issues, I had mentioned the school climate survey is something that I'd highly recommend that the district does. That should have been a part of these plans. There's no mention of gathering that kind of data, that qualitative data from the students and parents in the community. That's really important. I think we missed the boat on these ATSI plans because of that. Also, as a former instructional coach, the coaches are mentioned numerous times, especially in the junior high plan, but they're mentioned in conjunction with observations. Coaches don't do observations, just a clarification. Coaches are in the room to support the teacher and help the teacher, never to report or do formal or informal evaluations. So there's some language choice there that kind of concerns me a little bit. And I think the high school one overall was a little more specific. Again, it lacks the SEL and restorative practice piece in the school climate survey. One of my concerns there is the mention of a benchmark. I'm hoping that there's a uniform, consistent benchmark that all of the students will take, or those subgroups will take. In addition, On Hands is a great tool. That was something we had back when I was here. However, teachers didn't typically get a lot of training on that. Is that something that is done yearly where they get a refresher? Data was always a mystery. When I was a teacher at the high school, it was kind of handed to us, or we got a number, here's how your students did. The teachers have to be the masters of the data. They have to understand it and have to work in teams to tailor things for the students. So I'm kind of on a soapbox a little bit here, but as someone who does this and someone who knows that PDE is expecting it, we treat every student coming back, and hopefully when they get back in the buildings, every student should be treated as a victim of trauma coming back from this pandemic. And that's straight from PDE. And those SEL strategies and restorative practices would go a long way to making sure not just the targeted groups, but all of our students feel that they're supported. So I know that just goes to the IU, that being said, and the IU kind of files it away. But I think those are long-term goals that need to be in these plans.
Mike, this is Brad. I've worked directly with the high school and the junior high school on their plans. And SEL is something that we will be implementing more comprehensively this year. To be very honest with you, it's a relatively very hot topic, but a newer approach that we have not trained staff on yet, but are in the process, along with Mrs. Sanders, in securing folks to be trained to train the rest of the staff. So that is a part of not just for the ATSI groups, the subgroups that we were identified for, but all students. And I agree with you 100% with, what students and families have been through in the spring, that it's going to be paramount that we take mental health and trauma into effect. We went to a trauma training last year in Pittsburgh, and, our staff was shocked to find out that over 80% of all students could be identified as trauma students. They've experienced some level of trauma in their life. So that more and more is becoming a piece of how can students become successful. And really, when you look at your subgroups, they are more susceptible to trauma than your typical normal students. So yes, those are indeed. And we did focus on the academic piece, but obviously when you're teaching the whole student and involving the families in that piece, that's a paramount part. One thing I could recommend, that those resubmissions are due at the end of the month. If you would prefer, we can revisit those between now and the next board meeting and resubmit those with the more specific suggestions that you mentioned. That would not be a problem at all.
Brad, thank you. And I'm just one person. I'm just pointing out what I saw in there as someone who works on those. And I think we have to think long-term too. And I know that those, groups are important, that they reported focus groups, but we do need to serve, the whole child, as you mentioned, and we need to serve all of our students, not just those targeted groups.
Absolutely.
So that's my opinion. I don't speak for the entire board. That those were just my concerns looking at those documents.
Yeah, and we do collaborate with Janelle Vankis at IU8 on those submissions, and I know we've tried to look at the state suggested research best practices as well as what they are putting out as programmatically is what they are recommending. So some of them are a challenge to deliver in that they require an adoption or some other things. It's not just a matter of implementing how you do things, but you have to look at resource allocation and things as well. But definitely, if the board would like, we can I can work directly with Mike, and we can look at those plans, make some adjustments, and resubmit those at the 17th board meeting.
That's big. That's why diversity is really good on a board. You have finance people, you have athletic people, you have an educator. I think that's those important things.
Thanks, Dave.
I think you found my notes outside or something.
No,
So
I'll
we're
just say
gonna-
in general, academically, Mike is the first one to push out anything that comes out, state updates and things. Sometimes the IU gets a little teaser before the districts get them, and he's awesome at collaborating with us on best practices and things that are out there for our teachers, trainings, and things for our administrators. So you're right. It is excellent to have diversity on the board to be able to work with everyone's expertise area. So, but no, if the board would decide to, table that for tonight, we can work to look at those revisions and resubmit on the 17th, and we'll be well within our time to submit to the state.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so we have a motion to
Table it.
table it. Do we have a
Yeah,
second?
I'll make-
Second.
Second.
Okay,
Tabling 9.05.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to personnel. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions, concerns?
Oh, yes, I have a question, Madam President. Are these resignations and retirements, are they going to be filled?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed to the resignation of one teacher.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, student services, Blair Family Solutions. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
I'm sorry, I have to add one to that. And Pyramid Healthcare Addendum and Kids First Affiliated Services. There were three
I'll move
items
it.
there.
I'll move it again.
Okay, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Business operations, capital projects, list of payments, capital reserve list of payments, repository bids. And that's it for that category. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Oh, yes, Madam President, I got a question.
Sure.
Have we received any of the Plan Con money yet on this building project?
Yeah.
We have. So how many payments have?
You usually receive them biannually, so once every 6 months, is that correct?
After we make a payment, we submit the paperwork and we get it within 6 weeks or so.
Okay, I was asked if it was coming in, so it's coming in. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The person who wanted to call in has solved their issue and they'd like to speak. It is a sports related, to my knowledge. Is it okay with the board if we try to call her again?
Yes.
Fine with me.
Fine.
Does it pertain to what we're voting on tonight?
It's
No, she was the one who was going to comment at the beginning, but we couldn't get it technically worked out.
right.
By the way, was this meeting advertised both in person and on Zoom?
71741989118 is not
I
available.
think we did one.
717 is a Harrisburg number.
Yes. She moved.
She moved.
To transfer, press
All right. That's not giving me a dial tone. Can I just- That's probably us. All right.
Okay, let's move on. New business, we have fall sports, coaches and activities and extra duty stipend positions. Can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
This is primarily a clarification that Ed wanted to make sure was in there regarding if fall sports or other activities are negatively impacted by COVID, AKA canceled.
Okay. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to committee reports. Does anyone have anything they want to say regarding their committees? Go
Yes,
ahead,
Madam
Ron.
President. I was asked this morning if we can have a policy meeting on Monday,
The 10th.
August the 10th at 10 o'clock here in the library. And that's going to happen.
At 10 a.m. on the 10th. Okay.
And that's all I have.
Anyone else?
Well, I've got a question. One of the concerns that's been coming up because I'm on community outreach and talking to the community. I've got a question here. We are going to ask our teachers and students to make certain sacrifices. Those sacrifices may come in the form of asking people to wear face masks, asking people to social distance, asking all these issues. And the concern is, I'm looking right now at my screen, and I can only see 4 people. I only see 1 board member wearing a mask. I don't know if the others are they or not? How many board members actually have on masks tonight?
But we are socially distanced. We have two with masks right now.
Once again, my question is this: if we are going to ask our students and or our teachers, shouldn't we then be leading by example as board members? If we're going to ask our faculty and students to abide by all the rules, shouldn't we as a board be leading by example?
If I am out in public, Rick, I wear my mask. In here, I feel safe and I'm socially distanced and I don't wear my mask. So if they see me out in public, I'll wear my mask. Now, I feel comfortable, so I'm not going to wear it now.
Are we going to give that
example? I'm not setting an example here when I should be doing it outside when it should count.
Are we going to accept that answer from our students?
They don't like it. That's my opinion.
I'm asking a question. If a teacher or a student says, I feel comfortable here, I'm not wearing one, are we going to accept that?
No.
Then that makes my point.
We also have adopted a structure where once they're established in a classroom and they are properly socially distanced in that environment, the teacher will be allowed to allow them to unmask.
Now, let me ask you a question on that. If the teacher wants a kid to have a mask on, going to class, and a parent complains about that, or the teacher has a mask off and the parent mask on, and the parents get teacher gets yelled at for doing 2 things, are we going to stick by the teacher? I mean.
Well, first off, if a student refuses to wear a mask and cannot present the proper documentation, we have a virtual option that they can do instead of wearing a mask. And we're working with Carl. We have a training on Thursday, I believe, Carl. We're going to go to Bellwood, and all of our principals are going to be thoroughly trained on what we can and cannot expect with masks. The intention is there will be a point where it is teacher's discretion, and we will back the teacher.
Every school, we have for elementary, junior high, and high school, the teacher will be back. That's what I'm asking.
As long as they are not making an unacceptable expectation, they're going to be backed. I mean, I as a superintendent can't back something that's wrong. But likewise, if the teacher makes this decision and we've given it to them as their discretion, then the teacher needs to be back.
Well, what's wrong in this case? If the teacher wants the class mask, is that wrong?
No, the teacher can do that. And especially if the teacher is going to have the kids get up and do any kind of activity where they need to be masked, then they need to be masked.
And so a parent in that teacher's classroom says, I want my kid.
Well, then their options. So then they're going to have an option.
They can go to virtual.
They're going to have an option either to mask as required by the teacher, or to seek the virtual option where they're not impacting other people.
As long as our staff is backed up by the district, that's everyone's going to be different. There's going to be no question about it.
Well, then back to my point. Shouldn't we as a board lead by example? And everyone can have their own opinion on it. One of the reasons I don't come to these meetings is because people aren't observing what they're supposed to do. Now, maybe if people would wear their masks for a half hour, an hour, however these meetings are, then maybe whenever we have teachers, parents, or students complaining, and they'll say not even the board's wearing them when they're in public.
I wear my mask at church and it's
You're in public right now too.
I wear my mask at church, Rick, and it's tough.
All righty.
All right.
I
10
think
for.
to move on.
So So I don't need you telling me what to do.
Right, I think we need to move on. We're in committee reports now. I think we're going to go to superintendent's reports. Do you have anything for us tonight, Dr. Prieto?
Well, we've had a lot of conversations. Cigna was fired up, and teachers will be receiving their cards. We're working through kinks with the transition, but we're in pretty good shape. Appreciate the board's support of the actions we'll need to take to ensure the health and financial security of our teachers through the month of July. And we're moving forward with Prater and with our other options, and we're working very diligently along with preferred benefit specialists to generate our agreements with our secondary providers. And hopefully we're going to have some more good news as we move through the month with healthcare. And I appreciate the board's support in getting us through this very tenuous time. Thank you.
The citizen said that she would like us to try again. We'll call her, so she thinks her phone is working. And she confirmed the number.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
My mom has a cell phone.
717-918. Not available. Tone, please record your message.
For whatever reason, we're going to get.
Yeah.
We'll have a meeting on the 17th.
If her questions pertain to athletics, Mr. Riccio and I will call her directly tomorrow. I know that there were a couple other concerns about reopening. We are more than happy to reach out to her directly tomorrow. And if she would still like to contact the board for public comment on the 17th, we can arrange for that.
Sounds good. Anything else for the good of the order?
Yes. Have we looked into CARES Act money?
As much as we can, yes.
And how much of that could we put in to get?
We have the original CARES funds, which is approximately it's anywhere between 2.2 and 2.4. We also have grant monies through Safe Schools of approximately 400,000, and that's where it sits. There hasn't been anything additional to schools since those two.
Now have we applied for any funds yet?
We have finished the applications in a timely manner. Whether we have received any funds from them or not, I can't tell you at this point. It should be soon. When are they starting that?
I'm just going by the article I saw, or no, it was on WTAJ, and I knew that money was out there, and I knew school districts could apply for it, and I just wondered if we had.
The Safe Schools grant has been submitted, and we'll be receiving that funding. The CARES money, there is an argument about the proportions that are to be received by the non-pubs, and they are still redoing the grant on e-grants as we speak. So we can't apply, and because we can't complete the application. Once we can complete the application, we'll start to receive funds.
Well, any monies we can get, let's do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anyone else? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.